Cryptographic mechanisms can be algorithms, protocols, implementations of algorithms or protocols, even hardware. Cryptographic agility will be necessary, for instance, to become resilient against powerful quantum computers. So indeed, if you read today about quantum readiness, often crypto agility will be recommended, but it's rarely made concrete. Questions such as, what does crypto agility mean in practice for my environment? Or how do we become crypto agile? These kind of questions are rarely discussed in depth today. And in all fairness, I think that today, basically, no one has all the answers. It's something that we will have to find out together in the coming years. So nevertheless, in this talk, I would like to lift the veil a little. I will talk about questions such as, why do we need cryptographic agility? What is cryptographic agility? What could it look like in practice, etc. But before doing so, I would like to mention that this webinar is brought to you by Smals Research. And Smals Research aims at introducing new innovative technologies in a meaningful way in the public sector. We also try to assess the impact of new technological evolutions in this public sector. So the webinar of today, as you can see, we do a lot of studies. The webinar of today is an intermediate output of two studies, crypto migration and crypto policy as code. So, but first of all, why do we need cryptographic agility? As you understand from this slide, cryptography is everywhere. And without secure cryptography, I don't think that this is an exaggeration. Our society would collapse. But this cryptography is under attack. That's nothing new. It has always been under attack. I would say that's even a good thing, because if a specific cryptographic algorithm, protocol, or implementation can withstand during a longer period of time all kinds of attacks, it gives us confidence that also this cryptography will remain secure in the future. But reality is we are never 100% sure. One day there may be a successful attack that breaks part of our classical current cryptography. The most obvious threat today are quantum computers. Today, quantum computers, you can say that they are innocent, cute little quantum babies, but one day they may grow up and they may become fierce quantum warriors, able to break a big part of our cryptography, to break our classical public key cryptography. So on this graph, you see a little bit the impact of powerful quantum computers that do not exist yet, what the impact could be on our classical cryptography. As you can see, public key cryptography becomes totally insecure. So cryptography based on elliptic curve cryptography, or ECC, or based on RSA, or based on discrete logarithms, they become totally insecure. On the other hand, we see that symmetric cryptography and hash functions, they are much less affected, and we can relatively easily deal with this. In the worst case, I'm saying again, in the worst case, we just need to increase the length of our keys a bit, or the length of the hash outputs a bit. So this public key cryptography, where do we find it? What it is used for? Well, we use it to authenticate. We use it for key exchange, which means that two parties, they agree on a key, and this key is then used to securely to set up a secure channel. And also for digital signatures, that's also based on public key cryptography. So how far are the current quantum computers from breaking classical public key cryptography? This is illustrated quite well, I think, in this figure. On the bottom left, you see where the existing quantum computers today are. You see that on the x-axis, we have the number of qubits. It's a logarithmic scale. On the y-axis, also a logarithmic scale, we have the error rate. So what we see here is that in order to break RSA, which are these red lines, you can say the front lines, in order to break with with quantum computers RSA and also elliptic curve cryptography, it's similar. We need a Moore's law type of scaling for quantum computers. Moore's law, that means a doubling of the power every X months or every X years. Recently, a paper had been published just a few weeks ago, and it says that, look, in a previous paper that I published in 2019, I, the author, Craig Gidney, if I pronounce it correctly. He said, look, in a previous paper, I stated, I proved that we need quantum computers with 20 million physical noisy qubits in order to break RSA 2048. This quantum computer would need 8 hours for this. Now, what this author proves in this paper now is, look, also with 1 million physical noisy qubits, we could break RSA 2048. It would take us a week, which is a bit longer, of course. But what is important here, I think, is that we not only have the arrow up, which means more powerful quantum computer, we also have this arrow down, which means improvements of the quantum algorithms, of the implementation of the quantum algorithms to break modern public key cryptography. So these two needs to be considered. As you could see from the previous slide, cryptographically relevant quantum computers still seem quite distant. Nevertheless, I think we should already care and take action today, especially when you talk about communication. Because when you talk about communication, there is this attack that we call harvest now, decrypt later. It basically means that an adversary intercepts your encrypted communication, stores this encrypted communication during a few years, until the adversary has access to a powerful quantum computer and uses this powerful quantum computer to decipher, decrypt this communication that may still be valuable so many years later. So that's why we are forced to think a long time in advance. That's the bad news. The good news is it's also, let's be realistic, it's also a hard attack to execute. So don't panic. So aside from the quantum threat, we shouldn't forget there are also other threats that still exist that are still in the field, such as side channel attacks that can break implementations, also such as cryptanalysis that can really break the underlying algorithms. A recent example, successful example of cryptanalysis is the attack on Psych. So a little bit of context. In 2016, 2017, the NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technologies in the US, launched a standardization procedure to come to new post-quantum, quantum-resistant cryptography. So Psych was one of the around 80 submissions, and then only in 2022 it was broken by researchers at the COSIC group at the KU Leuven. Just in a few minutes on a classical computer, they could totally break that algorithm, and in a few minutes on a relatively slow computer. So my point here is that despite the worldwide attention by the worldwide crypto community on this algorithm, this crucial vulnerability had been hidden during 5 years. And my point here is that it is not inconceivable that cryptanalysis will also be able to break one day classical standardized or post-quantum standardized cryptography. So in summary, cryptographic mechanisms secure today may one day become insecure. We should be ready for this, and we should be able to migrate to newer, more secure cryptography whenever necessary. But in order to prepare for the future, it's always wise to look back. What lessons can we learn from the past? And in the past, we already have seen multiple migrations, multiple crypto migrations, for instance, from DES to triple DES, and then to AES, for instance, from MD5 SHA-1 to SHA-2, SHA-3. What we can learn from the past is that we already have seen multiple crypto migrations in the past, that's one thing. And what you also know now is that these migrations, they can be slow, cumbersome, and expensive processes. It can take 5 up to 15 years for an organization to completely migrate away from an old cryptographic algorithm or protocol. So last year, the NIST, which I already mentioned, standardized 3 algorithms that are supposed to be quantum resistant. 2 digital signature schemes, MLDSA and SLHDSA, which you see at the bottom, and also 1 key exchange mechanism, which is called MLCAM. So meanwhile, the NIST continues with the standardization of other post-quantum quantum-resistant algorithms. Digital signature schemes are new digital signatures are being standardized. Why? Because these 2 new standards, well, they are maybe quantum resistant, but they do not have these nice properties that we have, for instance, when we use the digital signature algorithms based on elliptic curve cryptography. We have, for instance, very short public keys, very short digital signatures, which is no longer the case with these new standards with ML-DSA, SLH-DSA. So that's why NIST is standardizing also other digital signature algorithms. And when we talk about key exchange mechanisms, so two parties, they want to agree on a shared key over an insecure channel. We have nowadays one standard, ML-CAM, which is supposed to be quantum resistant. But the NIST would like to have an alternative in case ML-CAM turns out to be insecure. So a bit what we can derive from this is that in the not so distant future, we may see multiple crypto migrations. It may be the case that becoming quantum ready is not a one-time shot. To make things worse, especially in Europe, cryptography in hybrid mode is recommended, for instance, by the BSI, which is the German cybersecurity agency. What they say, look, these new quantum safe algorithms, they are not yet as well researched as the classical methods. So therefore, it is recommended that this post-quantum cryptography should not be used in isolation, but only in hybrid mode, which means in combination with classical algorithms. It means that if one of the two algorithms is insecure, well, still the system as a whole is secure. But if we indeed have this transition period where we use cryptography in hybrid mode, it implies that we will see even more migrations. So the central question is, how can we facilitate smooth migrations? And I think, first of all, we should accept the reality that cryptographic algorithms, that they have a life cycle. Initially, they are recommended. Later, they are secure, no longer recommended, but still secure. Then there may become a time that they need to be phased out. And if things really go wrong, one day they may become completely insecure. More general, I think that cryptography can be your algorithms, can be hardware, protocols, implementations, can be your private keys, your secret keys, your certificates. All these things are your cryptographic assets, and they are important in your organization. They are valuable. They are assets that need to be managed. So we should accept this reality. So, say it differently, we should improve our cryptographic maturity. How do we do this? Well, I think there are at least three important elements. The one is insight. Create insight. Where in your organization do you use what cryptography, and ideally also for what reason? That's something we can do with what we call a crypto inventory. The second element is the cryptography policy. It gives us guidance. What cryptography should be used, what cryptography should not be used. And the third element is the crypto agility, which gives flexibility to our organization, which enables us to relatively easily migrate from and to cryptographic mechanisms. So what we will also see is that crypto agility also needs these two other blocks. It needs crypto inventory, it needs a crypto policy. So I will also talk a bit about the inventory and a bit about this policy. So in order to make the term crypto agility more concrete, I would like to start with TLS. TLS, it's a nice example of cryptographic protocol agility, but we not only need this agility on the level of the individual protocol, we want this agility on a broader level, on the level of ideally of our entire IT organization. Nevertheless, I think TLS is a good starting point. So TLS enables two parties, client and the server, to securely communicate. But before they do so, there is a handshake. And in this handshake, an important element is that both parties, client and server, they agree on a cipher suite. Cipher suite, that's just a set of algorithms, cryptographic algorithms. So both parties, they have an ordered list of supported cipher suites. Then there is a kind of negotiation phase. And in this case, client and server, they agree to use the cipher suite TLS, AES 128 GCM, and so on. So what is nice is that an application using TLS, it doesn't have to worry about all these crypto low-level details. It just asks the TLS client, okay, make a connection, send and receive data, disconnect from that party. So The application using TLS uses sends calls to an abstract API. Abstract in the sense that the API hides all these low-level crypto details. So that's one aspect of crypto agility in general. A second aspect is that entities, one or more entities, they can in real time select the cryptographic functions that they want to use. In this case, the cryptographic cipher suites. A third element is that entities are also able to add and remove cryptographic functions. So in this case, a client can, for instance, add cryptographic cipher suites to this list of cipher suites that it supports. It can also remove cipher suites from that list or reorder them. And this is basically already a very good definition of what we want, what crypto agility means. But again, we want to have this on the level of the entire IT infrastructure. And another property, of course, is that all this has no impact on the system availability, at least no negative impact. Okay, so I now have discussed the why and the what. What is cryptographic agility? Why do we need it? Now I would like to elaborate a bit on initiatives that Smals Research is taking, that also Smals is taking. So let's go back to the TLS example. So Smals has thousands of machines with TLS. So we need a structured, automated way to ensure that all these machines are compliant with the latest crypto policy. So that way we achieve a level of cryptographic agility that goes beyond the agility of individual TLS clients. So the idea on which Smals Research is working is to have a central, on the level of the organization, a central policy service. This policy service maintains always the latest version of our crypto policy, which is the green block that you see, the green rectangle. We express this policy as code in JSON. Why? Because that way it's relatively easy to generate from this policy a TLS configuration file, or at least that part of the configuration file that is related to cryptography. And then this can be pushed to all our virtual machines or physical machines that use TLS. There is in this approach one caveat, which means, well, sometimes the users of our systems are a bit more slow with the adoption of the latest cryptography. I talk, for instance, about general practitioners, pharmacists, also about public welfare centers, OCMW's, care centers, zorgcentra. So by just allowing the most recent cryptography, we will de facto exclude these entities from using our services. That's something we want to avoid. So in a controlled way, we want to sometimes to be able to deviate from our policy. The policy is defined on the level of the organization. The deviation would then be defined on the level of a specific application. Both are expressed as code, and with policy plus deviation, we can create a TLS configuration, at least the crypto part of it, for a specific machine. Okay, later I will talk also a bit more about this policy and deviations as code, what it could look like. So what we achieve here a high level of crypto agility by automating and centralizing the TLS configuration. Another advantage is that we have a better overview of where we deviate, again in a controlled and managed way, from the policy. Okay, next example is Sepia. That's something that's already running at Smals. It's a service to digitally sign documents on behalf of public sector organizations, on behalf of public sector services. So an application or service asks Sepia to sign a document by sending a call to an abstract REST interface. Abstract in the sense that it hides the cryptographic details. Then Sepia returns the document or the signed document. So what you see are a few interesting things. First of all, the keys to sign are stored by Sepia in a HSM, in a hardware security module. That's a typical, that's something that you see in crypto agile designs. That's a central management of the keys. So in this case, in a secure HSM, which I think is a good practice. Secondly, you also see that the corresponding certificates, they are stored in a database. That's also a typical crypto-agile design and central management of the certificates. And then what's also interesting, you see this A1, A2, and A3. They represent the digital signing algorithms that SEPIA supports. And over time, some of these algorithms may become less secure, and maybe we will have also to add new algorithms, such as A4. And you see that A1, after a while, it is phased out because it is no longer secure. So why did we build SEPIA in the first place? Well, because of cost reduction, because of in order to also to increase security. Why? It's better to have one centralized service rather than having multiple initiatives spread over the public sector. But now we have another reason to adopt these kinds of approaches. The reason is, of course, crypto agility. And what I think is nice here is that crypto agility and cost efficiency, they can coexist. So if you find such a use case to start with, that's of course a very good one. So a third example is the blind pseudonymization service. So Smals will have to make existing applications more crypto agile. So, and I would like to take this service as a first case. I came up with the concept a few years ago, and it enables a better protection of personal medical data. On the right of the slide, you see a very simple flow. I won't explain it in detail, but what is important here, you have the scenario that a doctor wants to register a medical prescription. So it asks the prescription service, the backend hosted by Smals, it asks the prescription service to store a newly issued prescription. And the prescription consists of two parts in our figure. First, we have the prescription data. Then we have the identifier, the citizen identifier, the social security number. And in this approach that you see here has some very nice properties from a privacy point of view, from a data minimization point of view. First of all, the prescription service never ever sees citizen identifiers, never sees social security numbers. The doctor only sees identifier social security numbers, never sees the pseudonyms. And then we have the pseudonymization service, which is responsible for converting citizen identifiers into pseudonyms and vice versa. It is blind, which means it never sees social security numbers, it never sees pseudonyms. So the solution also has some other nice properties, but the central question here is how quantum resistant is this solution? And we did the exercise, and what is important here is that we have, of course, cryptography on several layers. The most important layer, I would say, is communication. Why? Because of the harvest now decrypt later attack that I introduced previously. So first of all, we need to make our connections secure. So we will have to update our TLS clients, and that's not different from other applications. What is different from other applications is the cryptography on the application level, in this case of pseudonymization. So the blind, the unblind operation, the encrypt, decrypt operation, the pseudonymize operation, they are all cryptographic operations. And then the question is, of course, okay, how crypto vulnerable is this? We did the exercise, and there is one risk that we are mitigating, which means if Smals, who hosts the prescription service, if it one day has access to a powerful quantum computer, it can convert the pseudonyms back into identifiers. So we have a roadmap to mitigate this risk. We are currently working on an alternative algorithm that is quantum resistant. Then we will need to integrate crypto agility in this application. We will have to define the procedures to do the crypto migration, and then eventually we'll have to do the actual migrations. So my main point is here, my main point here is that today there are basically virtually all applications today that use public key cryptography, they are virtually all quantum vulnerable, and that's normal at this in 2025. My point here is that Smals is early by already proactively working on quantum readiness on crypto agility. So crypto agility in the public sector, I have given 3 examples: TLS, the blind pseudonymization service. These 2 are basically in the research phase. Then you have SEPIA, which is live. But I also would like to stress, to emphasize that Smals also has other initiatives that increase our cryptographic maturity, that also increase our cryptographic agility. So for instance, we have the key vault to protect keys, middleware keys. It will soon be live. Also, we are introducing a central certificate management system to install and update certificates, TLS certificates, will also soon be live. So again, I think in general, Smals is early. With crypto agility, Smals is taking initiatives, but nevertheless, we are also realistic. We have a long road ahead of us. So let's now talk a little bit about the crypto inventory. So a crypto inventory gives us an overview of what cryptography is used where in the IT infrastructure, and ideally we'll also store, of course, for what purpose it is used. A crypto inventory can become massive. If you can, in theory, you can store that information about every key that you use in your organization, every certificate, each algorithm instance used by different applications, cryptographic protocol information can be stored there. Information about hardware security modules, for instance, about Internet of Things. So my point here is exactly that these inventories in the future, they may become massive. It's impossible to maintain this manually. So we will need automated processes to do this. In order to have these automated processes, we will need tools to help us, but also this crypto inventory will need to be expressed in a machine-readable way. Tools currently are being developed. Here you see an example, the CBOM kit. It's open source, developed by IBM. And the idea basically is that you take the URL of a publicly available GitHub repository, you give it to this application, and then this application will scan it and it will output a dashboard like this. It will give this kind of output. The circles that you see is 35 types of crypto assets. If you hover on them, you will see what type of crypto asset each circle represents. So one circle could, for instance, be RSA 2048. If you scroll down, you see each information about each individual crypto asset that has been found by the application. And if you click on the location, on this column at the right, it will bring you to the exact location on the repository where this cryptography asset is used. What is also interesting is that you see on top this download CBOM button. What is this? Well, CBOM is an object model to describe cryptographic assets and their dependencies. Since recently, it is also an OWASP standard. On this slide, you see a simple example of the use of the CBOM model. Here you see where in the application that we have just scanned, RSA 2048 is used. Okay. In the CBOM, with CBOM, we can also express other things. We can express algorithms, we can express certificates, protocols. We can also express other related crypto materials such as public keys, ciphertext, passwords, tokens, and so on and so on. I think that the CBOM, although it's relatively new, I do think that in the next years it will have an uptake. It will be supported by more and more vendors. And I do think that CBOM, it has a future. We'll hear and read more about it in the future. So if you want to know more about CBOM, I would like to recommend the authoritative guide to CBOM, also publicly available. So our inventory, we will have to populate our crypto inventory with information about all our crypto assets. We will need input from different sources. I think in the first phase that we will mainly rely on discovery. We will scan our network, what cryptography is used on the network. We will use also static scanning to have an idea of what cryptography is used in our code, for our databases, in other IT assets. And I think as the market matures in the next years, we will move more and more to what I call delivery, which means that if you, for instance, buy an HSM, hardware security module, you will not only receive your HSM, you will also receive a CBOM that you can then import in your crypto inventory. Same for cloud services. If you use a cloud service that uses cryptography, you will have access to a CBOM, and a description described in the CBOM model that you can then integrate, import in your crypto inventory. I also think that, well, Smals also develops applications in-house. I think that future develop environments will also have the ability to automatically generate a CBOM each time you build an application, each time you release a new version. And then this new CBOM information can be pushed also to the inventory. So we will in the future have this need to consolidate everything in one inventory to keep it up to date. This requires automated and integrated processes. It's a long shot. What I have shared here is a bit the long-term vision. At the moment, we're not there yet. I would say start simple with a focus on your most valuable assets, with a focus on your external communications. That's the most sensitive due to the harvest now, decrypt later attack. Also consolidate what you already have. Maybe you already have network scanners that can help you. Maybe you already have a central certificate management system that can also give useful information to our CBOM, to our crypto inventory. Okay, now that we know a little bit about CBOM, I can jump to the crypto policy as code. So Smals has already a cryptographic policy. It's based on the recommendations of the German BSI, which I see as a reference in Europe. As you can see here, for instance, we recommend, when you talk about symmetric block ciphers, we recommend AS128, AS192, AS256. But the next step now, and that's what where Smals Research is working on, we need to express this as code. This slide gives you a little bit of an example what it could look like, what it will look like. So on the left, that's nothing new. They just copied from the CBOM model from this authoritative guide that I have recommended a few slides ago. And so that's something that already exists. And it contains information such as, okay, what's the security of, in this case, AS128 GCM. AS128 GCM, that's a specific mode to encrypt and decrypt data using a symmetric key. And we can see that this has 128 128-bit security in the classical way of expressing security, which means if there are no quantum computers. There's also a quantum security level defined by the NIST. It consists of 5 levels. You see that AS128 GCM has level 1. Okay, but that's all CBOM, has nothing to do with our recommendations, with our policy as code. But what you can see on the right, that's our policy as code. And what you see is that we maximize CBOM compatibility. We keep the structure, we keep the names, we keep the identifiers, but at the same time, we avoid further information duplication. So that's where Smals Research is working on. What you do see is, of course, the new block in bold. This is a block about recommendations. So this one is recommended, AS128 GCM is recommended. And then you also see, for instance, conditions to correctly use this crypto asset. I also told about deviations. Deviations to ensure, in a controlled, managed way, availability to users, which are a bit more slow with the adoption of the latest cryptography. There are several blocks here, for instance, to define the scope and the application, information about approval, information about the risk assessment, and also what you see on the right is a description of the exception itself. So what you see in the blue rectangle, that's just copied from the CBOM. That's nothing new. So again, here we try to maximize CBOM compatibility. So in this case, I think that's clear for you. What we allow, what is the exception? We allow the cipher suite TLS DH RSA with AS128 CBC SHA-256. Okay, the names are sometimes a bit long and boring, but that's life. Okay, so our goal is to express the inventory as code, to express recommendations, policy as code, also to express deviations as code. We think that this combo is a very powerful combination. In general, I'm a big fan of everything as code. It enables us a high degree of automation. It enables a high degree of insight. And as you understood, Smals Research is working on this. So cryptography in hybrid mode is something that I have mentioned previously. How does it work, and how can crypto agility help us to navigate this? So maybe a little recap here. So cryptography in hybrid mode, it means that classical cryptography is used in combination with post-quantum cryptography. So I would like now to take key agreement as an example. So we have here Alice and Bob. Alice and Bob, they would like to securely communicate with each other. They want to exchange data with each other. So in order to do so, they need to agree on a shared symmetric key. And they can do this using the elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman protocol, which you see at the bottom. So the result of executing this protocol between Alice and Bob, which is the orange arrow, is a shared key, which is the orange key. Then Alice and Bob, they can use this key to securely encrypt and decrypt their data in transit. In a crypto-agile approach, Alice and Bob will, of course, use an abstract API, an API that hides the crypto details. In a crypto-agile approach, it's also possible to add a new protocol for key agreement, for instance, MLCAM, which is a new NIST standard, which is supposed to be quantum resistant. And then Alice and Bob, they can use, if they want, this protocol to agree on a quantum resistant key, which is a public key. And then this public key can be used again to protect, encrypt and decrypt data in transit. Okay. Now, what changes if we want to use elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman, which is quantum vulnerable, and MLCAM, which is quantum resistant, if you want to use them in a combo? Well, in fact, not that much. So what happens is that elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman, this protocol is run in parallel together with MLCAM. This results in two keys, two shared keys. One shared key, the orange one, and then the other shared key is the blue one. And then there's one extra step. These two keys are given to the KDF combiner, which is a key derivation function combiner. Essentially, it is a hash function. So you can say that the orange key and the blue key, they're hashed into a new key, and then this key is used to encrypt and decrypt data in transit. Okay, it is of course also possible in our crypto-agile approach that Alice and Bob, they say, look, there is also this other technology. It's called quantum key distribution. We also would like to use quantum key distribution. So what is the idea behind quantum key distribution? Well, Alice and Bob, they install both a machine, a specific machine that can only do this. So basically, these two machines, they are connected with each other using a dark fiber. And these two machines, they will exchange with each other photons in a quantum state. And if everything goes well, it results in a shared key, a key shared between Alice and Bob, which is the yellow key. And also this yellow key can be given to the KDF combiner to have an even stronger key. Of course, in the next years, it is likely that quantum computers will become more powerful and that we will say, look, elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman, this protocol will no longer support it because it's too risky. Okay, well, we can easily phase it out if we use cryptographic agility. And maybe it still makes sense to use MLCAM and quantum key distribution in combination. So MLCAM, that's just a algorithm that you can run on classical computers. Quantum key distribution, therefore you need specific hardware. Quantum key distribution is not yet as mature as post-quantum cryptography, as MLCAM. So maybe it makes sense also to use these two in combo if you want. So main messages here is that hybrid mode helps navigating crypto migration transitions. And second thing is crypto agility facilitates hybrid mode. Hybrid mode, this transition period becomes quite simple if you use crypto agility. And what's also important, I think, is that this kind of approach that I have illustrated here, it is already implemented by vendors, it is already on the market. Okay, let's go to outlook and challenges. So in the next slide, I will go a little bit out of my comfort zone. I will try to do a prediction. So what could a future crypto agile infrastructure look like? So again, it's a prediction, it's inaccurate, but it may inspire us, it may give us ideas. So in a crypto agile environment, we can have local crypto services, such as the TLS services that you see at the bottom. We can also have other local crypto services, such as a service to encrypt and decrypt information in a database. We also have centralized crypto services, such as the CPR service that we have seen a few slides ago. And all these services support a set of cipher suites or a set of algorithms. Now, in our future crypto agile infrastructure, we may have a central repository with implementations of cryptographic algorithms or cipher suites. And as soon as a new implementation is available, A5 in this example, it can be pushed to the different crypto services that need it. In this case, it's our database encryption and decryption service that needs it. Maybe based on this new algorithm, also a new cipher suite, CS6, may be available in our implementation service. And this implementation service can maybe push it to the crypto services, the TLS clients in this case, that need it. So in this case, we also avoid that we need an update of our TLS clients. Okay, so that's maybe one service that we will see in the future. Another one is the policy service. I already talked about the policy on the level of a organization, and I also talked about the deviations on the level of the applications. And why do we need this? Well, of course, our different crypto services, local or central, they need, of course, they need to know what cipher suites, what algorithms they should use, and which ones they should not use. So what I have already illustrated in the previous slide is that we can generate application-specific policies, or you can call it also configurations for the different crypto services, so that they know what cryptography to use, what cryptography not to use. So that's another central service that we will need. I also talked about certificate management system, a centralized certificate management system. That's also something that will become more common, especially if you want to have a crypto agile environment. And I also talked about the crypto inventory. That will be another central component. So why am I telling all this? Well, because I think crypto agility, it implies centralization. It also implies automated processes. Okay, how do we become crypto agile? Is there a road towards crypto agility? So a road with milestones, with levels of maturity that an IT system, IT infrastructure can reach. So at the moment, there are no official roadmaps, no standards that can guide you, but researchers at the Darmstadt University in Germany, they already did a good job by proposing a first maturity model. They define 5 levels of maturity. The first one, level 0, is, okay, sorry, crypto agility in your IT infrastructure, it's not possible. It's not possible because requirements on level 1 are not met. Level 1, it means crypto agility is possible, but you will need to adapt some of your components, some of your subsystem. Also on level 1, you already see appearing the crypto inventory. And we have prepared. What does that mean? That's level 2. It means that crypto migration, it can be done in your organization, but it will still need some preparatory manual work. And then practice, that's also where the policies come in. So crypto migrations, it can be demonstrated, and it is feasible in a secure and effective way. And then the last level, level 4, that's the gold standard. It enables a organization, it enables fast crypto migration on the broader infrastructure. Okay. Main message here, I think, is that crypto agility is not an on-off button, it's a journey. It's a journey without official roadmaps yet. But I think that even with the best roadmaps, with the best maps, we will encounter challenges. This won't be different on our crypto agile journey. I think that becoming quantum ready will already be quite a challenge. But I think becoming fully crypto agile, that will even be harder. But I also do think that it will pay off in the long run. So by switching to newer cryptography, we may face performance issues. We may face undesired overhead. So it's important to test everything very well in advance and ensure that your infrastructure can deal with this overhead. I would like to illustrate this with digital signature algorithms. So in the first two rows, you see digital signature algorithms based on elliptic curves and based on RSA. These two are not quantum resistant. Then the other four are new standards, or will be standardized soon by the NIST, and they are supposed to be quantum resistant. As you can see, Sphinx, the two rows at the bottom, well, the signature size explodes. Also, the CPU time needed to generate the signature is also big. So I think that these two, we will only use it for very specific use cases. So let's focus on Dilithium, which is already standardized, and on Falcon, which is being standardized. What we see here is that the public key size, especially compared to elliptic curve cryptography, it becomes much bigger. Also, if you look at the size of the digital signatures, also the signatures, they become much bigger. And we go from 64 bytes to more than 2000 bytes when we use Dilithium. This has consequences. For instance, our certificates, X509 certificates, they will become bigger because each certificate, as you probably know, contains a signature. It also contains a public key. Our handshakes, if TLS handshakes, in order to communicate securely with each other, they will also become bigger. Each time I navigate to a website, well, such a handshake is performed. And there are estimates that say, okay, depending of course on the specific parameter and specific algorithms that you use, that with post-quantum cryptography, your handshake will become 12 to 15 kilobytes bigger. Then we have smart cards and IoT devices. So I think that crypto agility on the level of a smart card or IoT device will never be possible. But we should at least register information, crypto information about these devices in our crypto inventory. Why? To avoid a deploy and forget scenario. So newer smart cards and IoT devices, of course, they could integrate also the newer digital signature algorithms. But maybe the more crypto agile approach is to have a central service, a bit like Sepia, that offers digital signing services. And the only thing that then you do with your smart card is authenticating towards that central service. And that central service will then, on behalf of you, produce digital signatures. Okay, QR codes. Well, what we have seen during the pandemic are a lot of QR codes. And these QR codes, sometimes they embedded digital signatures. And even digital signature is only 64 bytes, that's not too hard. If your digital signature becomes suddenly more than 2 kilobytes large, well, it becomes a bit more challenging to, in a practical way, embed this in a QR code. And of course, we have hardware. Hardware can offer specific instructions to speed up cryptography. For instance, to speed up AES, symmetric encryption, or to speed up elliptic curve operations. And of course, this acceleration, it is lost if you migrate to newer cryptography without upgrading this hardware. So another challenge here, we call it protocol ossification. So let's say that a client and server, they want to communicate using a new generation of cryptography. They may still be unable to communicate with each other because one of the middle boxes cannot deal with this new cryptography. A middle box, there are devices such as firewalls, such as network address translators. They are devices that transform, inspect, filter, manipulate the traffic. And maybe we will find undiscovered bugs in these middle boxes. For instance, after a crypto migration, messages during a TLS handshake, they become bigger. And historically, they all fit in one TCP package. If now suddenly you need multiple TCP packages for each message sent during a TLS handshake, well, maybe one of our middle boxes will not be able to deal with this, resulting in an inability to establish a secure connection. I also understand that these middle boxes, that they sometimes need knowledge about the protocols that client and server use. And of course, if a middle box doesn't know a protocol, it may block the communication entirely. Okay, so wrapping up, I would like to share some advice. Some advice given, I think, 2 or 3 years ago by the German BSI. You know the BSI, meanwhile, German Cybersecurity Agency. The advice was given in the context of quantum readiness. The first one is obvious. It's include the risk of powerful quantum computers in the future. Include this risk in your risk management. Second point of advice was create a crypto inventory. Again, I would say start simple, focus on your most valuable assets, focus on your external communication, and maybe you can consolidate what you already have, such as your certificate management system, such as your network scanners. Third point of advice is implement and use crypto agility. If you do in-house development, I think it's wise to embrace crypto agility as a design principle. And when it comes to products, services, software, hardware that you buy, also there it is, I think, interesting to ask your vendor, okay, look, what are your plans when it comes to crypto agility? This is advice given by the NSA already 10 years ago, but I think it's still relevant. So what they basically say to their vendors, to their suppliers, is, look, if you're today using RSA cryptography and you're planning to migrate to elliptic curve cryptography, well, maybe it will save you money if you wait with the migration to elliptic curve cryptography, if you wait a bit and if you migrate immediately then to the post-quantum cryptography towards the new standards. So some advice on quantum readiness. Well, first of all, fear is the bad guide. So we are not sure if quantum computers will ever be strong enough to break public key cryptography, our classical public key cryptography, but nevertheless, we should mitigate the risk, I think. Have your priorities right? That's something I already mentioned there. Focus on your communication, focus on your external communication, focus on your most sensitive assets. Prepare to go with the flow. What do I mean by this? Well, of course, many applications that use public key cryptography, they rely on certificates that encode public keys. So certificate authorities, I think in the end will determine when to introduce new cryptography, when to phase out old cryptography. And we should be ready for this. We should be ready to go basically with their flow. So about crypto maturity, I think that historically there has been a bit of a neglect when it comes to cryptographic maturity because we were convinced that RSA and elliptic curve cryptography are rock solid. So there's some work in front of us, I think, but I also think it are what we call no regret moves, which means if we build a crypto inventory, a crypto policy, when we introduce crypto agility, it is relevant, it's for your organization, even if there will never be sufficiently powerful quantum computers. Think long term. Well, these things are long-term investments. Don't get stuck in the past, focus on the future. So I would say newer applications, it makes sense to refactor them to include crypto agility, but for older applications that reach their end of life time, well, in a few years, well, maybe it's not worth the effort to go to refactoring these applications. So a few words about quantum readiness and crypto agility at Smals. So Smals Research focuses on post-quantum cryptography, on the crypto inventory, on crypto agility, on crypto policy as code. So all these things, they stay in the focus of Smals Research. As I already indicated, Smals is also taking initiatives. We have Sepia, we have the middleware key vault that I mentioned, we have the automated certificate management that is coming that I also mentioned. And Smals is also working on a plan of action. It will be communicated later this year, so stay in touch with us. But what I also would like to stress, I've done it previously, is that Smals is early. We try to be responsible when it comes to processing of personal data, and I think that's why we need to be early. So I have made 3 slides for you that are quite verbose. I will not discuss them. They are basically a summary of this webinar. And you can use these slides to communicate with your management. So this is the first one, second one, the third one. Slides will, of course, be distributed to you. And here we have a few references. The Crypto Migration Handbook, published by the Dutch IVD, is for sure recommended. It has been published in the end of previous year. We also have, of course, a NIST report. We have multiple NIST reports, in fact. There are also the articles published by Smals Research. So this is my very last slide. And I would like to end with a metaphor. The animal you see, I guess most of you will recognize it, it's a cheetah. And a cheetah, it doesn't panic, but it's alert and it is ready for action. And to catch their prey, they rely on agility and rapid acceleration. So my message of today is, be like a cheetah and embrace crypto agility. So I would like to finish by thanking you for your attention. Also, please scan these QR codes. You will see there a form, and there you can give feedback so that we know what to improve on our webinars, what you liked, what kind of aspects you would like to see more in depth, and so on and so on. So thanks again.